Hey, welcome to week 5 of the 40-day challenge. If you're watching this video, man, you are deserving of an award because I know this is not an easy challenge. The fact that you can't schedule this challenge and say, I'm going to do this every day at 8 o'clock, or I'm going to do this every day while I drink my coffee, makes it a lot more difficult to do. And the fact that you're still here 5 weeks later is a statement to your perseverance and your resilience. So even if you've had to start over once or twice or more, as I've heard some of you have had to do, way to go. And you're going to get great benefit from this. So let's just jump into week 5 really quickly and to talk about what's happening. So what I'd love to hear from you is what you did in week 4. I asked you to identify what's an emotion that triggers you, that sends you on a trip. It's a bad feeling emotion. The reason most of us take a trip in the first place is because we're emotionally uncomfortable. And so the trip that we take it evokes a different emotion that gives us some form of relief. So we go from an uncomfortable emotion that triggers us to taking a trip that then feels better, but it's not really that good of an emotion because it has other negative consequences to it. So have you identified for at least one of your trips what's the negative emotion that triggers you, and what's the relief emotion that you feel? And if you figured that out, send it to me, because I just really would love to hear. Give me a little bit of detail. Just give me a paragraph or so that I know what's going on for you. And if it generated any questions, ask the questions, okay? Secondly, let's talk about the challenge for week 5. I've got good news for you. I'm going to suggest that you just go back to keeping track of 1 trip a day. Some of you are doing 3 or 5, and good for you for doing that, because that really built the muscle of awareness and watching where your attention was. But I think if you've been doing this for 5 weeks, even if you dropped a day or had to start over, you've been at this for 5 weeks, you have started to build the vigilance of watching like self-surveillance is sort of what it is. And you're watching when you're taking those trips. So you don't need to go at that level anymore. We want to make sure long-term that this practice fits into your life so you can do it without major hassle. So let's go back to 1. You're going to just catch yourself on 1 trip a day, look at your watch, write down the time. The goal is always the same, to be there earlier today than you were yesterday. So that's the new practice. We're going back to 1 a day. If you want to go 3 or 5, you can, but I think you're actually ready to go just back to 1. Just a small daily drip of it is all you really need. And then I'm going to ask you to, the challenge for this week is, once you see yourself on a trip, can you make a turn? The fact that you're already noticing, like you may have noticed already, that just being aware that you're on a trip is a turn in itself. It actually helps you start to dial things back. It's if we talked in one of the previous, I think it was week 3, where I talked about every time you notice that you and your thoughts are not the same and you create space between them, that's a power move. So just noticing that you're on a trip, you're already being more powerful. So congratulations on that. That's a turn. Just the noticing is a bit of a turn, because you'll notice that it starts to take you out of the trip. But let's be a little bit more deliberate now and see if we can take you maybe even completely out of the trip, or at least much more of a power positive place, or less power negative. So I'm going to give you 2 moves that you might want to make. Typically, most turns fall into 1 or 2 categories. They're either physical, you pay attention to your body, or to your breath. And here's why that works, is because if a trip is about not being present, if you watched the FAQ last week, I talked about that, what constitutes a trip. Anytime you're not present, you're on a trip. So if that's what being on a trip means, then whenever you are present, you're bringing yourself back off the trip. And that's the thing that's so great about our physical body, is the physical body, your mind can go past, present, future, there, all over the place, but your body can only be here and now. So that's why a physical turn is really effective, because it just makes you be present. And so I'm going to suggest, you may have lots of those that you do, but I'm just going to, if you don't have one and you want one that's really easy that you can do when nobody else will even know you're doing it. When you notice you're on a trip, focus on your breath and do something really specific, which is inhale on the count, on a slow count of 4, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then exhale on 6. So at the same, the same tempo, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you repeat inhale at the same tempo. If you need to go a little bit faster because you can't make it last that long, that's fine. What we're going for though is an extended exhalation. When you extend your exhalation, you stimulate the vagus nerve. When you stimulate the vagus nerve, it creates a lot of health benefits, including building your resilience and helping you bounce back faster. We could do a class just on the vagus nerve. So, but when you extend your exhalations longer than your inhalation, you're stimulating that vagus nerve. So it's a great way to create a turn, and the breath is part of that physical activity. So just count, inhale, count, exhale, 4 inhale, 6 exhale. That's a great one. Another option would be to do some self-coaching. That's the second category. We've got the physical, we've got the self-coaching. So for the suggestion for the self-coaching, I'm going to suggest that you you ask yourself a question. If you find yourself on a trip, you just ask yourself, what's a better feeling explanation about what's happening? What is a better feeling explanation? The reason you need to do that is because you're on this trip because you're interpreting what's happening in a way that you don't like. You think this person is being a jerk. You think the world is against you. You think life is unfair. You think you're in trouble. You think you're in danger. So just ask yourself, what's a better feeling explanation for that? Maybe they're not a jerk. Maybe they're just in a hurry. Maybe they're worried about something themselves. Whatever. Just think of a better feeling explanation. And that can start to back you off of a trip, because what we do is we make an interpretation, it sends us on a trip, and then we lock into that interpretation of this is how the world works and this is how it is, and it feels really crappy. So force yourself to generate a new explanation. If that's too long a sentence saying what's a better feeling explanation about what's happening, you can just say what's a better feeling thought? What would be a better feeling thought right now? Either one of those are self-coaching to get you to reframe what's happening and back yourself out of the trip. So, to review the practice, catch it once. Once you catch it, see if you can make that turn, either by the physical move with the breath, or another physical move that you like if you already have a turn in place that's physical, or by doing the self-coaching. And I gave you the suggestion for what to do there. That's it for this week. You guys are making great progress. You've been at this now for 5 weeks, so you've been paying attention every single day. Or maybe you've skipped a couple, but for practically 5 weeks, you've been paying attention to your attention, which is by itself incredibly powerful and power building. So good work. And this is now that you've been doing it for a while, it's gonna be hard for you not to pay attention to this in the future. That's why we do this for 40 days, 40 consecutive days. Congratulations, I hope this is helpful. Email me with insights, email me with questions, tell me what you found out in week 4 when you were looking at those 2 different types of emotions, the triggering emotion and the relief emotion. I'd love to hear from you, and thanks for playing. Have a great week.